Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Temple of Hip Hop. I am KRS-One. And of course, today we are celebrating. First of all, we're celebrating victory over the streets. But on another level, it's my good friend Geraldine Davis. It's her birthday today. Well, not even today. It was about a few days ago. But I was out of town. So I figured I'd come back. When I got back in town, I said, look, let me throw Miss Davies something that makes sense to her. We're at the birthplace of hip hop. We're at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx right now. And we got a full jazz band jumping off. Miss Geraldine Davis, is her birthday. And we're also taking a look at the band itself, just because we want like a jazz, a hip hop jazz kind of situation to jump off. But right now they're just showing their skills in terms of just straight up and down jazz. We got our elders in the building right now. I took a meeting today at the Temple of Hip Hop. I was so privileged to be able to meet the president of the Tenants Association to the housing complex that's behind the Temple of Hip Hop. About 30 people showed up. We talked about the temple. We talked about us taking over the Trek Center. They know it as the Trek Center. It's now the Temple of Hip Hop. So this was amazing. And that's what we're gonna talk about today, is I wanna talk about elders. And I wanna talk about hip hop's importance to elders. Peace and welcome to the Temple of Hip Hop. I am KRS-One. We're back again, and I'm in a more quiet area here where we could discuss what we're talking about today. We're talking about ancestors and taking care of our ancestors. We're talking about the elderly as well. You know, those that are apprentices of the Temple of Hip Hop, you know that we teach in real time. So what that means is that lessons, we don't just read our gospel and glean the lessons that the gospel teaches. We also glean lessons from life itself. We are observers of life itself. And so there are lessons that life teaches that the teacher is responsible for pointing out to students and apprentices. Most of us see it anyway. Once you have the sight, you see life and you see how it talks to you. But sometimes some things are just overlooked, and one of which was the care for our elders. Most of us at the Temple of Hip Hop, we're taking care of a parent, or we have taken care of a parent, or we're doing work with the elderly. This is important in terms of the how would I say, the building and developing of culture. If we're really discussing the development of culture, yes, the youth are extremely important, but so are our elders. So are the elders. There's a vast degree of knowledge there. There is also a karmic blessing, those that understand karma or adhere to those laws. There's a karmic blessing as well to caring for your ancestors in that way. All of us don't have, excuse me, all of us don't have such great relationships with our parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, or even some of us ancestors, because ancestors are not just family, like a profession, like, okay, take the culture of hip hop, for instance. Our ancestors would be, Malcolm X, Garvey, even Herc and others. These are controversial figures as well. And to care for a controversial figure or group of figures also demands a degree of selflessness, I should say. You can't really form an opinion on your ancestors if you're going to take care of them, if you're going to respect them, if you're going to acknowledge them, or at least what every succeeding generation is supposed to do is take the best parts of your ancestors, leave the BS behind, and move on. Move on with the best parts. That's what nature does. When we have children, nature genetically takes the best, what it feels is best for the survival of the child. It takes the best of the father and the best of the mother and creates the child. All the nonsense that nature itself thinks is BS going on in you does not get passed on to the child. Think about that for a minute. Even the faults that do get passed on to children from their parents, somehow nature felt as though you needed that to be a stronger individual, to help you to survive. So we're talking about ancestors and ancestor worship today, and we're acknowledging this in real life. What does that mean in real life? In real time, real life. So, we have the Temple of Hip Hop, 55 Ludlow, Newark, New Jersey. We're renovating the place now. We're painting, we're putting up signage, we're getting more our unique artwork done. We're getting more of that done. Shout out to Bradford Brown on that one. We're beautifying our temple right now. We're buying our books. We're putting books into the library, knowledge on the wall, and so on. But as you know, as we go in, now some of you might have gotten the update this week. Dues paying members got the update, the weekly update this week. If you didn't get it, make sure you do, check in and make sure you get that. But over the weekend, this weekly report is going out. So in that report and in general, you notice that we said when we come into a neighborhood, let's say Newark, New Jersey as the example, When we come into the neighborhood, it's not just about us. It's not about what we want to do in our agenda. We have an agenda. It's to preserve hip hop. But our agenda to preserve hip hop means preserving hip hoppers. So in that, we go into the neighborhood looking for our community to empower, restore, advise, guide. This went down yesterday, Saturday. This just went down. It was Friday, actually. It wasn't yesterday. It was actually Friday that I took a meeting with the Tenants Association, the president of the Tenants Association, Miss Eileen Shaw, and the tenants that were part of the association. What this was there's a housing complex behind the Temple of Hip Hop. Remember, the Temple of Hip Hop is a brand new building. So there was a project, a tenement project there before it that got torn down, and the temple was put in its place. There is housing all around the Temple of Hip Hop. And so there's a housing complex just on our backyard. If you go to the backyard of the temple, there's a housing complex in the back of that. So I got a chance to meet with the president and the organizers of that housing complex. Obviously, mostly older people. But, they were concerned that they said, the building got shut down. We can't get in. The housing authority used to charge us to come in. Are you charging? This kind of thing. They had a tenants meeting on Friday. I quelled out all fears. Or at least I hope I did. Quelled out all fears and dealt with all concerns. And it was a great meeting. And so we're moving forward in the neighborhood. This is South Ward, Newark, New Jersey. And so the housing people there, the people who actually, keep the housing together, these are the people we want to meet with and include in our vision for what Hip-Hopia looks like. I talked to them yesterday about Hip-Hopia. Everyone was amazed at the idea and wanted it to happen. Some even saw their own opportunity, because I mentioned the entrepreneurial opportunities in bringing the world to a certain place called hip-hop. Don't just sit there and look at that. Get your entrepreneur on at this particular moment. Do something with your hands, arts, crafts. Finish that book. Make that documentary. Have something, a $10 item, a $20 item that you could give to somebody from Japan, somebody from Africa, somebody from Australia, Europe, etc. They're all coming to Newark, New Jersey. So we did that yesterday, and I got a chance to also praise our elders. Most were elders, and elderly, I mean like over 60, 65, many was 70 and so on. And their concerns are not big. The concern was, can we play chess? Can we bring chess back into the building? Can we hit bingo? Can bingo come back every Friday night? Of course it can. I was like, yes, I'll sit there and play bingo as well with cash prizes. And, you win all types of little things like laundry, detergent, and stuff like that, neighborhood stuff. Stuff that the city gives away for free if you hooked up and know what time it is. You can get free food, free laundry stuff, even free clothes like that. Newark, New Jersey handles its elders like that as well. Shout out to Shamika. I'm missing her last name right now, but she deals with all of the seniors in Newark. Some, 10,000 people she dealing with, okay? Met with her as well so that we can get these seniors into the Temple of Hip Hop. Keep in mind that when we say seniors, these are people that grew up with me. I'm 58, I'm getting ready to be 60. There's people 60, well, actually, there's people 45, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, and 70 that all grew up together, listening to the same music, breaking, graph, beatboxing, DJing. We were all doing it. Now we're older. We're going into our 60s. We're going into our 70s. Who cares for us? Who cares for the elderly of hip hop? Who care? So as an institution, the Temple of Hip Hop, we think about things like this. And in thinking about this, we engage our elders. What do you want? What do you need? How do you survive? The prices of, a lot of our elders are on a fixed income. They get a subsidy or some kind of a pension or something. If you lucky, if you are ones that could actually get that. And they're living, literally from check to check. So any extra money you bring forward is a blessing. Even beyond the money, any event that you can put on for elderly people is a blessing for them to get out the house, to have somebody to talk to have somebody to cry to, even yell at. Switch it over to 1520 Sedgwick Avenue where the jazz thing was going down. Oh, we had to beat them down. All types of people, some are passive and don't want to speak. Others' mouths are open too much. Others really want to get something done. Then you got the legends in the building like Miss Geraldine Davis, Miss Gloria Robinson. These are the women with others that fought for the building to remain, where it is, not being sold, torn down and turned into something else, or sold and then the building itself turned into high-priced condominiums. These women fought for 1520 Sedgwick Avenue to be what it is today and be the birthplace of hip-hop, because as they were fighting for this, they found out that this is what it was. And so they played that up. And so we went to 1520 Sedgwick Avenue the other day, looking at our space there. And we threw a party for a woman named Geraldine Davis. It was really for the building itself, because we, the Temple of Hip Hop, we regularly bring entertainment to the building, and we're looking to, take the kids, the elderly, to places like the museum, aquariums. You would think this is simple stuff, and maybe some of you have done it. But when somebody shows up and wants to take you out somewhere and you ain't got to pay for nothing, it's just get in the car and let's go. There's a level of respect that comes on that. There's a level of appreciation that comes on that. So yesterday, Miss Geraldine Davis had her birthday. I think it was like one of the women said it was her 70th birthday. I think Miss Geraldine Davis, I forgot what age she was dealing with. Must have been 80 or something. Yesterday, I forgot what it was. We wasn't really playing. We wasn't really yelling her age out too much. But she's clearly either close to her 80s or 80. And she had told me, I was at the building another time, and she said to me, last week, she said, "You wasn't here for my birthday. I had a birthday. You wasn't here for my birthday." And I said, I was out of town. I'm running around. This is what it is. I said, you know what? I'll make it up to you, Miss Davis. This is what it is. So I had a chance to double back the Temple of Hip Hop, put it together. We got a jazz band going. We pulled out light hors d'oeuvres, but the booze was going. The whiskey, because this is what old folks like. This is what they want to deal with. Okay, wine, red wine was out, white wine was out. We had the cheese, the crackers, olives, some pizza was there as well, and so on. But they got a chance to listen to the jazz, hit an olive, and drink something. They loved it. They loved it. As a matter of fact, let's take a break and go back to that scene real quick and take in some of the appreciation and the love. Welcome back. You see what I'm saying, right? You see what it is. Music and good times in a small area is really all it takes. And I advise you to do this with the elders in your neighborhood. If you are Temple of Hip Hop, if you're a member of our temple, just consider putting together a little something, a jazz band. Even, I mean, we went as far as a live jazz band, but you could just play music. The elderly will come out to a DJ playing, R&B and jazz, like that. Yesterday, our jazz band threw on, break beats as well. I heard a rendition of, Little Kim, there was a break beat, dun-dun, 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 dun-dun. They had that going with the horn and all of that. We requested a more hip hop jazz performance, but they broke down with, the classics that you play in jazz as well, and the older folk loved all of it in that sense. We pulled out the cake, hit Miss Geraldine Davis in the head with the cake. She broke down, started crying. It was crazy, but in appreciation, and she was acknowledged, and she felt the acknowledgement, and her friends were there, and strangers were there, and the Temple of Hip Hop was there, and we had a great time. John Crotty was there as well. Shout out to John Crotty, owner of the building. He came through. Gizmo came through with Darnell, his son. Shout out to Sidney Mills, old time producer of mine. We go back to the first albums. He came through. Big up the Hoffa as well. Whole host of dudes. Tony Tone from the Cold Crush came through. It was and it was jazz, and we all enjoyed it. What it was, and so having said that, I bring this up because it's not just enough to acknowledge, in the Ten Commandments it says, honor thy mother and thy father, that thy days may be long upon the earth. But everything in the Bible is symbolic as well. It's not just face value, mother, father. No, that mother, father has a lot to do with whatever is birthing you. Sure, you have a mother and a father, births your physical birth. Sure, you should have some respect. I say some respect for these crazy, but you should have you should have respect for your mother, for your father. They are your mother, they are your father. No matter how difficult these people could get, no matter how wild they could actually seem, they are still your mother, your father. They can't get away from the fact that you're their child, and you can't get away from the fact that that is your parent. So you got to respect the relationship. For a lot of us, our parents are more immature than we are as the kid. And that's a matter of opinion, but some of our parents are not parents that we can even be proud of. Forget getting along. Some of our parents are doing some stupid stuff that we as the sibling don't agree with. You still got to respect them, though. You still got to give them the respect. And how do you give the respect? Well, you check in on them. You don't badmouth them. You and your moms, you and your dad, you and your grandma, whatever the parent is might be going through something. You keep that to yourself and keep that to your family. You don't bring that out to the public. My mother, at least not how we practice at the Temple of Hip Hop. I'll put it that way. So it is at this stage in your psyche that you realize what an ancestor actually is. And most people, when they say ancestors, of course you think about your own lineage. You think about your own particular lineage. But an ancestor is really anything that precedes you, that you are coming from. So we have the biological ancestor, which could be your parents, their parents, their parents, and so on, back to the first one. And this is why you keep a physical lineage, or try to keep an acknowledgement of your physical lineage, because that acknowledgement, like think about this, you come from somewhere. Like, just take a moment and meditate on that. The fact that you come from, you don't just exist like this. You are the latest version of a long line of people. Think about that for a minute. Like, what you actually are. My ability to rhyme, I was born with that. That means somebody before me had that same ability, probably better than what I'm spitting. Who knows? Somebody in my past gave me this ability. Think about that. Unless you are learning something for the first time in this life, and even then, when you learn something for the first time in this life and it becomes part of your genes, it's second nature to you. You pass that on to your kid. And they just wonder, like, well, how am I able to just do this? And then, and their kid, and their kid, and their kid. Somebody gave you the talents that you have. Somebody was you before you were you. Somebody had to make the right decisions in their life for you to have a life. This is the importance of your ancestors. And when you get out of the flesh, get out of your physical body, like say, I'm only looking at parents. No, your real ancestor then becomes the parent of your consciousness. The parent of your character is your mother, your father. The parent of your existence as a human being, which is not the body. The one that opened your mind. That would be considered your parent or an ancestor. The person you're coming from. Say, take sports as an example. As great as Michael Jordan is, he may always praise Wilt Chamberlain. Or Dr. J, or, those who have come before him. Because when he didn't even know what a basketball was or how he was going to do it, he watched them. And they were moving on the court with grace and style. And he said, this is what it is. But he realized he had something in himself looking at somebody else. And these people are unrelated, biologically. I'm showing you another side of ancestor worship. That word worship, to worship your ancestors. People think you're supposed to put a picture on the wall and pray, or it's whatever you're supposed to be saying or whatever it is to these ancestors. That's cool. If you want to go with ritual and tradition. Okay, so the Buddhists put a picture up with fruit, water for the ancestor. Many African traditions do the same. The Irish as well, certain European Celtic tradition does the same. All of them are into the ancestors. Most ancient cultures go right to the ancestor worship. But the ancestor worship is not just acknowledgement, with food or drink or a picture. The word worship, as we learn in the gospel of hip hop, has more to do with cultivation, taking care of something. That's what it means to worship. Not praise and thank, but actually care for something. So when we say ancestor worship, we're not talking about praising the ancestors. We're talking about actually taking care of our ancestors, some of which are still alive. Like Miss Geraldine Davis. That's an ancestor. This is a woman older than me, older than us, I should say, or me in particular, who has come before me and has done work that I'm benefiting from. The 1520 Sedgwick Avenue is her building. And remember, KRS lived in 1600. I can claim 1600, which is the next building over. But the actual birthplace of hip hop, 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx, that's Miss Geraldine Davis building. That's Gloria Robinson building. That's John Crotty's building. So these are the ancestors that I am inheriting the building from. So to worship my ancestors, those who are before me, those who did something or initiated something or was part of something before I was, the worship of them is not just praise and thank. The worship of them is the care for them while they're alive. What could we do right now to make this inheritance better, stronger, last long, develop, this kind of thing? You have to acknowledge that you have an ancestor in order to have an inheritance. If you don't have an ancestor, you don't have an inheritance. And a matter of fact, just real quick, hold up, I have some notes here. I just want to read this real quick. Just thought about it just now while I was talking. This is from a dictionary. Let me start off with the dictionary definition of ancestor, because it'll break down what I'm saying more articulately. Here's ancestor one. This is from the American Heritage Dictionary, 4th edition. Ancestor one, a person from whom one is descended, especially if more remote than a grandparent, a forebearer. So an ancestor is a person from whom one is descended, especially if more remote than a grandparent. So ancestors are generally people past your grandparents. But look at what it is, though. 2, a forerunner or predecessor, period. That's what an ancestor is. A forerunner or predecessor. That's it. 3, in law, it says 3, law. The person from whom an estate is inherited. So an ancestor is the one who gives the estate, the one who causes whatever the value, the estate, the property is. The person who hands that over to their posterity is the ancestor. 4, and this is biological. 4, the actual or hypothetical organism or stock from which later kinds evolve. So the actual or hypothetical organism, the thing or stock from which later kinds of these same things or stock evolve. So this is the ancestor. This is your ancestor. An ancestor is a person physically, a person that you could say is before your grandparents. That's an ancestor. An ancestor is simply a forerunner or predecessor, somebody who's come before you. That's it. Malcolm X is an ancestor. Geraldine Davis is an ancestor. And especially in the movement of hip hop, Kool Herc is an ancestor. And, Pebbly Pooh and all the others, Flash, Africa Bambaataa, Lovebug Starsky, these are all ancestors. And look at it. For those of you that might just be 25 now or 20, LL Cool J, Run DMC, myself would be considered ancestors to what you're doing. as far as hip hop is concerned. So realize what an ancestor is. An ancestor is not just a person of the remote past that you are connected to biologically. An ancestor is really just a forerunner, a forebearer, that which happened before you. But like I said, if you have no ancestors, you have no inheritance. If you don't know who your ancestors are and what they did, you can't really explain yourself. Think about that. Imagine you have an ability to rap, but you don't know your ancestors ever rapped. You may go through life without rapping one time. Think about how many other talents that we have right now that we're not calling up because we don't know that aspect of our ancestors. If you knew your ancestors' entire character, you could learn from it. You could learn the traits and the talents that you have in you. And of course, we teach, how to make that connection, because the connection's not lost. It's a level of mind that we have to achieve. It's a level of character, a level of soul that you have to achieve to commune with your ancestors. Your ancestors don't speak English. You want to pray to your ancestors talking English? They don't speak English. They don't speak French, German, Spanish. They speak life. They speak nature. If those are your ancestors. Because keep that in mind too. You got to make a choice based on your character, who your ancestors are. Do these people that came before you match your character? Do you feel a connection to these people that came before you? This is how you know you part of the same group, tribe, or nation. So ancestor worship is not so much about praising or even acknowledging your ancestor as it is more about your connection to the creator of you. This is what it is. Your connection to your creation starts with your ancestors. Think about that. Each of your ancestors is like an ingredient inside of you. You got at least, I can't even count how many ancestors must be inside of you that make up you. You say, well, I'm just me. That's because you can't look back 100 years and see somebody back there connected to you doing the same thing. Like, you might sit down and you just have a habit of digging in your ears. You sit down, it's like, I feel better when I'm just digging in my ears. And you get to look back 100 years and the person doing something completely different, but every once in a while they be going like this. And you be like, word, that's my ancestor. I'm doing what they doing. And this is where immortality comes in, because the more you become the collective, the whole of your culture, you're immortal. You never die. You never lived. So you can never die. You always existed as the character of your nation. Once you become an individual, you can die. But if you are larger than the individual, you live forever. You live forever. You're not an individual. You alone are not the reason you exist. If you alone are the reason you exist, then when you run out of ideas of existence or run out of energy or any of that, you're gone. You're by yourself. You're individual. You come and you go. But if you're connected to your culture, your lineage, your heritage, your ancestors, then you know without a fraction of a doubt that your older ancestors never died. They're you now. And the way you feel now is the way they felt. Your desires are their desires. It has to be this way because you exist. You did not just pop out of thin air with everything in you that you have. No, this was built up over thousands of years. The real you, is millions of years old. We just don't have the consciousness to connect ourselves to our true selves. We connect ourselves to the physical, to the body, to a landmass, to, the physical world. And we define ourselves based on the physicality of our world. But we know that we are not the physical world. We're part of it. But we're more consciousness than anything. In fact, this physical world cannot even operate without consciousness. It has no existence without consciousness. So if we are more consciousness than we are the physical world, why not exist in the laws of consciousness? This will help you to live better. You're closer to the truth. And so if you're closer to the truth, which is conscious being, you live forever because your consciousness, your character, your sense of awareness, your perceptions, most of it comes from who knows how many other people that had to go through stuff, transform stuff, get hurt, avoid hurt, have victory, have failure, all got written on the genes, and now here's you. Here you are. You can't take credit for all that. Kind of selfish, don't you think? Look at the character of the individual. Somebody who says, well, it's just me. I ain't got no respect, no responsibility to nothing but me. Look at that. That's what you're saying to your ancestors when you don't acknowledge the actual truth of your existence. How is it that you could do something naturally? That's the point. Ain't no naturally. Somebody before you did it, and before them did it, and before them did it. And it got perfected all the way to you. Are you squandering the gifts of the gods? It got all the way to you, and what are you going to do with it? I'm just going to do it half-ass and just, it's my natural ability, but I don't give a fuck. Dishonoring your ancestors, not cultivating what they are inside of you. That's the real ancestor worship. So let me turn now to the gospel of hip hop, and we'll conclude our lesson on this, because what I want to point out is that the true concept of ancestor worship is to take care of your ancestors. The true concept of ancestor worship is to acknowledge the needs of the elderly that are around you. We say ancestors. We go back 1,000 years the minute we say ancestors. We say ancestors. We going back 100 years. No, as we just saw in the definition of ancestor, an ancestor is anybody that came before you. That there can be ancestors in religion, in spiritual thought. There are ancestors in commercial, technical thought, the world. There's ancestors in law. There's ancestors in medicine. There's ancestors in archaeology and architecture. All of these have ancestors, people who came before those who are practicing this now. Hip hop has ancestors, those who came before that established certain elements and principles and traditions that we are all enjoying now. So turn to your gospel of hip hop. If you have a copy of the gospel of hip hop, I advise you now to turn it to page 73. Turn your gospel now to page 73, and we're going to start with paragraph 72. Page 73, paragraph 72. And just for the record, what we're doing is we're actually reading from what is called real hip hop. Real hip hop. And this is important because it's the first overstanding of the gospel. Real hip hop. And so let's read. This lesson is about ancestor worship. These are the English etymologies of the term hip hop, and we can see here within these definitions how even hip and hop come together to mean hip, informed, and hop, springing or dancing. Together, the term hip hop, even when spelled in lowercase h, can mean an informed springing or an up-to-date modern dance. An informed movement upward. A hip, updated, hop movement is an intelligent movement, a movement aware of itself. To be hip means to be up to date, relevant, in the know. Therefore, to hip something or to make something hip is to modernize it. To hip a hop is to modernize an upward movement. Now, this is important to our study because this is the activity of how ancestor worship is dealt with. You are continuing. To hip a hop is to modernize an upward movement. So your ancestors are coming with the upward movement. They're coming from their ancestors before them, their ancestors before them, their ancestors before them. This is an upward movement we're dealing with right now. You are the latest version of this upward movement. However, it is interesting to point out the correlation of these two terms as they apply to plant life. Both hip and hop refer to plant life. One, hip, refers to the seed pod of a rose bush, and the other, hop, refers to a vine having flower clusters. Now keep that in mind. Hip, rose hips is the symbol for that. And hop, usually barley hops, is the symbol for the hop. You'll see that in our logos. Our seal, the seal of the temple, is surrounded by by rose hips and barley hops. The relation between seed and then vine within the symbolic interpretations of hip and then hop cannot be ignored. In terms of spiritual symbolism, we focus upon how hip comes before hop, like seed comes before vine. Spiritually, it appears that hip-hop is the seed of a new vine, the new people, the new way. However, when you add the etymology of culture to these interpretations, even more symbolism is revealed. The term culture, from 1439, that's when it enters the English language, the term culture, from the Latin cultura, meaning tending, care, and cultivation, seems to come from cult, the past participle stem of the Latin colare, colere, meaning to till, cultivate, tend to, and inhabit. Look at that word, tend to and inhabit, to cultivate, to cult something. Cult, 1616, this is when this word comes into English language. Cult originally meant worship or homage, not to worship or to pay homage. Cult comes from the Latin cultus, meaning cultivation, care, attention, worship. Did you get that? cultus, the Latin cultus, from which the word cult comes from, was originally associated with cultivating, caring for, and attending to, of something or someone. Attuned hip hoppers are advised to worship God in this way, to care for God. When you worship God, do you just praise and thank, or do you tend to the needs of God? And we'll get to that lesson later, the needs of God, which has a lot to do with yourself. For as we belong to God, God equally belongs to us. God is to be worshiped, meaning cultivated and cared for, not just acknowledged in thanks. For when we hear that they fell down and worshiped him or her, we must understand that in ancient times, to worship a person or God meant that they took care of that person or God. Know this, God is to be cared for and cultivated, not just thanked. Let us continue with the word culture. Now then it goes into this whole thing with culture. But this is the point that we want to point out. Hip hop culture. Culture is the caring of, the inhabiting of, the cultivating of something. So when we say hip hop culture, that cult-er is directed to the hip hop. Are you cultivating hip hop? Are you caring for it? This is what it means to this is what it means to cultivate or to be part of hip hop as culture. But what I want to say is pertaining to ancestor worship. To worship is the word. It means to cultivate. It too means to cultivate. It said cult originally meant worship or homage, not to worship or to pay homage. And what is worship or homage? Worship and homage is to cultivate. Comes from the Latin till, cultivate, tend to, inhabit. This is what worship means. It almost means also to become one with. When you say inhabit, to care for something. So, we went to 1520 Sedgwick Avenue to care for our ancestors in real time. We literally gave them their flowers. Literally. A bouquet of flowers landed in their laps. About 4 elders would receive flowers, and we cut the cake and all of that. But the point was to worship our elder right there. And worship doesn't mean putting somebody on a throne, and although we did put her in a nice chair, we bought a chair, comfortable chair, sat her down in that. But it's not just about enthroning your ancestors and praising them. It's about, did you take care of them? Did they eat? Did they drink? Do they have shelter? Did you come and acknowledge them, take them out? You know, this kind of thing. And you know, even as I speak, I'm even thinking about really how important that is. You know, to check in on the elderly. I mean, like, wow, you know, we don't even know how we even saving some people's lives. Some of the elderly, giving a will to live, giving them a will to live. Because somebody came and checked on you. Somebody came and acknowledged your existence, took you out, had some drinks and a laugh. Comedy shop. Well, this is the work of our temple. This is the work of building hip hop as culture and as civilization. We got to take care of our elders just as we take care of our children. But the elders in this country as well, in this society, elders are getting pushed to the side. Elders are getting ignored. And you can see the stupidity in the society because nobody wants to listen to the seasoned voice of an elder. Nobody wants to listen to the advice of those who have gone on before them. So you can't even make the right decisions. Somebody who made it to 80 years old, you want to ask them, how did you do that? What did you eat? You'll find these people say, I ate pork chops, beef, I smoked cigarettes, sniffed coke, I did it all. Well, how you 85? I don't know. I praise God. I went to church every day. Who knows? And each story is different. But as a young person, you want to know, how'd you get to 90? How did that happen? What did you do? And you want to glean that lesson. I mean, whether you might not even be able to do what these people did, different lifestyle. But to not know the story is to not be able to call up certain aspects of yourself because you're ignorant. You don't even know you got that in you. And the only way you're going to find out is by talking to the elder. This is KRS-One. You have been listening to the Temple of Hip Hop. We do this every Sunday, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We talk about hip hop. This is not religion and this is not science. This is philosophy, which is the mother of both of them. The Temple of Hip Hop is a hip hop ministry, archive, school, and society. We're located at 55 Ludlow Street in Newark, New Jersey, and you could always check thetempleofhiphop.org for more information. Thank you. Have a good week. You know what? I wanted to see this because and look at you. I wanted to see this also because, obviously we got a few other sessions to do. We're out in Newark, New Jersey. I got a deal out there. I just came from some seniors in Newark, New Jersey that really need this right now. So we wanted to come here 1520. This is the birthplace of hip hop. First started right over there in that corner. This is the birthplace here. So we wanted to, get you guys here as well. I'm listening to show me You know how you would rock the older generation. Let's say your demographic is 45 and up. You know, 45 and up. Rocking that real quick.